Good evening, my friend. Tonight, as you settle into your bed, I want you to know that you're not alone. Many people, especially those of us who have reached 60 and beyond, find that sleep doesn't come as easily as it once did. It's not your fault. It's simply part of the natural rhythm of aging. Your body has carried you through so many seasons of life, and now it sometimes takes a little extra patience to find rest. Before we begin our story, I'd like you to take a few small steps. If you haven't already, turn down the lights in your room. Let the glow be soft and gentle, nothing too bright. If you can, set aside your phone or any screens. Place them far from your bed so they won't disturb you. Tonight is about you, your comfort, and your peace of mind. If there are small noises around you, that's all right. Perhaps lower the volume if you can. Let the world grow a little quieter so your thoughts can slow down too. And if you find yourself still alert, just remind yourself gently, it's okay not to fall asleep right away. The more you let go of the pressure to sleep, the more sleep will come to you naturally. Now, as you listen, allow yourself to relax. Take one slow breath in and let it out gently. You don't need to force anything. Each breath will help your body sink deeper into calm. Your shoulders can soften, your hands can rest loosely, your eyes can stay closed if that feels right. And remember, sleeplessness is not a sign of weakness. It is simply something that happens with age. There are millions of others tonight, your age and older, who are lying awake as well. You are not alone in this. And just by choosing to be here, listening to a story, you're already guiding your body toward rest. As we journey together tonight, I'll take you back in time, back to a gentler, slower world, where warm summer evenings stretched long and the sound of a radio filled the air with music and comfort. You may even find echoes of your own memories along the way. If at any point you drift off into sleep, that's wonderful. You don't need to hold on to every word. The story will carry you like a calm stream into deeper rest. If you remain awake, that's fine too. Just let the words wash over you like soft waves of sound. So now let's leave behind the worries of today. Let's step quietly into a summer evening from many decades ago. A night when the air was gentle and the music of the radio made the world feel safe and endless. The night was soft and welcoming, the kind of summer night that seemed to stretch on forever. Outside the small house, crickets played their steady tune, a rhythm that never hurried, never tired. The air carried a faint sweetness of freshly cut grass mixed with the warmth that lingered long after the sun had set. Inside the living room, the radio sat proudly on its wooden stand. Its polished surface reflected the dim glow of a single lamp, the shade tilted just enough to soften the light. The hum of the tubes warming up was a sound everyone in the family knew, a promise that music or voices from far away were about to arrive. Clara leaned back into the worn fabric of the couch, her bare feet tucked beneath her. She was 18 that summer, though her heart still carried the wonder of a child. She loved these evenings most of all, when the world outside slowed down and the radio brought stories and songs that made her feel part of something larger than the quiet town she called home. Her father sat in his chair by the window, pipe resting in his hand, though he rarely smoked it anymore. He just liked the feel of it, the way it reminded him of younger years. Her mother hummed softly as she folded laundry, each piece neatly stacked, the rhythm of her movements steady and comforting. The announcer's voice crackled through the speaker, smooth and calm, like a trusted friend. Good evening, folks. Tonight we have music to keep you company on this fine summer night. And with that, the room filled with a slow, gentle melody. a tune Clara had never heard before, yet somehow it felt familiar, as if it had been waiting in her memory all along. The song drifted out into the night air through the open window, mixing with the chorus of crickets. It felt as though the whole world was listening together. Neighbors sitting on porches, couples swaying in kitchens, children fighting off sleep with heavy eyes, all connected by the invisible threads of radio waves. Clara closed her eyes for a moment, letting the music wash over her. She thought of the stories her grandmother used to tell, how years ago, before electricity reached every home, people would gather wherever a radio was, leaning close to catch every note, every word. For them, it wasn't just sound, it was magic. As the melody played on, Clara's mind wandered to the simple joys of summer, the smell of lemonade cooling in the icebox, the creak of the old porch swing when she sat out at dusk, the fireflies that blinked like tiny lanterns in the dark field. Each memory layered itself gently over the music, weaving a tapestry of comfort that wrapped around her. Her little brother, barely 10, sprawled out on the rug with a comic book he pretended to read. His eyes, though, kept lifting toward the radio, as if the voices might leap out into the room and speak just to him. Sometimes he would grin, sometimes frown, caught up in worlds that existed only in sound. The announcer returned, his tone soft and reassuring. Don't worry about the day you've just had. Let the night carry you forward. We'll keep the music going for as long as you'd like. Clara felt her shoulders ease at those words, the small anxieties of the day melting away like sugar in warm tea. The clock on the wall ticked softly, steady but never intrusive. It marked the passage of time, yet in that moment it felt like time itself had slowed. Outside, the night deepened, stars blinking awake in the wide sky, though the air still carried the warmth of day. Clara thought of tomorrow, of chores in the morning and friends she might see in the afternoon, but she didn't hold on to those thoughts. She let them pass by, like clouds drifting lazily across a summer sky. What mattered was this moment, this room, this gentle music threading itself into her heart. And as the next song began, a tune with soft violins and a singer whose voice carried both longing and peace, Clara smiled to herself. The night was long, but it felt safe, and the music reminded her that she belonged to a world that was kind and steady. Morning in Clara's house always began with the same gentle rhythm. The sun rose slowly over the small town, spilling soft light across the curtains. Her mother would already be in the kitchen, the smell of fresh coffee filling the air, mingling with the quiet sound of a skillet warming on the stove. Breakfast was never rushed. Scrambled eggs, a slice of toast, maybe some bacon if it had been bought from the butcher earlier that week. Her father liked to read the paper while sipping his coffee, glasses sliding down his nose as he turned the pages carefully. Clara would often sit nearby, her own cup of tea steaming in her hands, listening as her parents shared small comments about the day ahead. Chores were as regular as the ticking of the old wall clock. Laundry carried out to the clothesline in the backyard, where the sheets would flutter like sails in the summer breeze. Sweeping the porch, watering the flowers that lined the walkway, picking a few ripe tomatoes from the small garden patch. Nothing was hurried, nothing was loud. The day seemed to move at its own gentle pace. In the afternoons, the neighborhood came alive with small, familiar sounds. Children's laughter carried across the street as they played hopscotch on the sidewalk. A dog barked once or twice before settling back into a shady spot under the porch. The postman's steady footsteps echoed along the gravel road, followed by the soft clink of letters sliding into the mailbox. Clara often enjoyed walking to the corner store, where glass bottles of soda gleamed behind the counter, and the shopkeeper greeted everyone by name. The floor creaked beneath her shoes, and the smell of fresh bread sometimes drifted in from the back. She never bought much, perhaps a pack of gum or a small chocolate bar, but she loved the simple comfort of seeing neighbors exchanging a smile, a word, a laugh. Evenings were a time of gathering. After supper, meatloaf, mashed potatoes, green beans, everyone would drift toward the living room. The dishes were left to soak in the sink, the window above them open to let in the cool night air. Her mother might knit quietly in her chair, the click of needles soft and steady. Her father adjusted the dial on the radio, fine-tuning until the static melted away into clear voices. Sometimes the family played board games on the rug, checkers, Monopoly, or a deck of cards spread across the coffee table. Clara's younger brother would get excited over every move, his laughter spilling into the room, making the walls seem warmer, the night seem lighter. Saturdays had their own traditions. A trip into town, perhaps a stop at the diner where red vinyl booths lined the walls and the jukebox played songs everyone knew by heart. Milkshakes came in tall glasses topped with whipped cream, and burgers sizzled on the griddle, their smell drifting through the whole place. Clara loved sitting by the window in the diner, watching people pass by, each carrying their own small stories. Couples holding hands, old friends tipping their hats to one another, children pressing their noses against the glass of the candy shop across the street. Life was ordinary, but it was full, and every moment seemed to carry its own quiet beauty. Sundays were slower still. The morning church bells rang in the distance, their tones rolling gently over the rooftops. Afterward, families gathered for Sunday lunch, the table filled with roast chicken, warm rolls, and pies cooling on the windowsill. There was laughter, there was prayer, and always a sense of belonging. When Clara thought of her days, she realized how much comfort they held. No grand adventures, no hurried rush, just the steady rhythm of family, neighbors, and the quiet joy of a world that felt safe and familiar. And in the evenings, when the radio played softly, she knew that these simple routines were the threads that wove her life together. As she leaned back on the couch on another summer night, radio humming gently in the corner, she let her thoughts drift. The crickets outside kept their song, the stars began their watch overhead, and the house, filled with the small sounds of those she loved, felt like the safest place in the world. Clara often found herself drifting back to the earliest summers she could remember. She was no more than 6 or 7 then, her world small but endlessly magical. The backyard seemed like a whole country of its own, each corner holding secrets waiting to be discovered. The tall grass brushed against her legs as she wandered, chasing butterflies that always danced just out of reach. Her father had built her a swing from an old wooden board and sturdy rope. It hung from the largest tree in the yard, and in the afternoons she would pump her small legs higher and higher until the sky seemed to open wide above her. She remembered the feeling of the wind on her face, the laughter that spilled from her without effort, the sense that nothing in the world could ever fall out of place. Her mother's voice was always nearby, calling her in for lunch, reminding her to put on a hat when the sun was strong, or simply humming a tune as she worked around the house. That voice, steady and gentle, became the background music of Clara's childhood. Even now, when she closed her eyes, she could still hear it. On long summer days, Clara and her brother would turn the simplest things into adventures. A cardboard box became a wagon. A towel thrown over 2 chairs became a secret fort. They carried sandwiches wrapped in wax paper, pretending they were travelers in distant lands, though the farthest they ever went was the edge of the field behind the house. There were evenings when her father would light a small fire in the yard. The family would gather around, roasting marshmallows on sticks, the sweet smell clinging to their fingers. Fireflies blinked in the distance, and Clara would try to catch them in a jar, only to let them go again, her heart too soft to keep them trapped. Sometimes, when storms rolled across the plains, Clara would sit by the window, eyes wide at the flash of lightning. Her mother would place a hand on her shoulder and whisper, "It's only the sky talking to us. Nothing to fear." And with that, the storm became less of a threat and more of a lullaby, deep and powerful, but safe as long as she was home. Sundays of her childhood held their own kind of magic. The family walked together to the small white church at the end of town, the bells ringing as they approached. Inside, the pews were polished smooth by generations, and the sound of hymns rose like sunlight, filling every corner. Clara didn't always understand the words, but she felt their weight, their comfort, like a blanket around her shoulders. She remembered her grandmother's kitchen, where time seemed to move slower. The scent of fresh pies cooling on the windowsill, the old clock ticking softly in the background, and the way her grandmother's hands, wrinkled but steady, could turn simple dough into something that felt like love made tangible. Clara would sit at the table, legs swinging above the floor, waiting for that first warm bite. Every summer seemed endless when she was a child. Days stretched into weeks, weeks into months, and yet each one was filled with discoveries. The way the cicadas sang at dusk, the way the stars multiplied in the clear sky, the way the cool grass felt beneath her bare feet when she ran across the yard at night. All of it etched itself into her memory, not as grand events, but as threads of quiet joy. Now, as she sat in the living room on another summer night with the radio playing softly, those memories returned like gentle waves. They were not sharp or heavy, but soft-edged, comforting. They reminded her that even as the years passed, the same rhythms remained. The crickets still sang, the stars still shone, and the world still held spaces of peace and wonder. Clara sighed, leaning back into the cushions. The past felt close, not as something lost, but as something she carried within her. It gave her strength, it gave her calm, and as the night deepened outside, she let the echoes of her childhood guide her gently toward rest. As Clara grew older, her memories shifted from swings in the backyard to the slower rhythm of school days and friendships. She remembered the creak of the wooden floors in the small-town schoolhouse, the chalk dust that clung to her fingertips, the faint smell of old books that seemed to carry secrets of their own. Her teachers were kind but firm, guiding her and her classmates through lessons that felt both endless and fleeting. She loved the way the sunlight poured in through the tall windows, creating golden squares across her desk. Sometimes she would daydream, tracing the patterns of light, imagining herself in distant places she had only read about. Friendships in those years felt like lifelines. She and her best friend, Margaret, would walk home together, their shoes crunching on gravel roads, sharing whispered dreams of the future. They spoke of places they wanted to visit, dresses they hoped to wear, and boys they only dared to glance at across the schoolyard. There were dances held in the town hall, simple but magical. A record player spinning, paper lanterns strung across the ceiling, the smell of punch and cookies filling the air. Clara remembered the nervous flutter in her chest the first time someone asked her to dance. The music was slow, the steps uncertain, yet the moment glowed in her memory like a lantern in the dark. Letters became another part of her life. Friends who moved away sent envelopes marked with neat handwriting, and Clara would unfold each one carefully, as though opening a window to another world. She cherished the words, the promises to write again, the tiny pieces of another life that slipped into hers. Summers of her teenage years were filled with a different kind of wonder. Instead of chasing butterflies, she would sit on the porch in the evening, listening to the radio play the latest songs. Her brother still ran through the yard catching fireflies, but Clara was content to lean back in the swing, letting the music drift around her. The melodies spoke of love, of longing, of futures yet unseen. She remembered saving up small amounts of money to buy a new dress for the county fair. The fabric was light, patterned with small flowers, and when she wore it, she felt older, as though she was stepping into a new version of herself. The fairgrounds buzzed with laughter, rides spinning under strings of lights, the air thick with the smell of popcorn and cotton candy. For Clara, it was not the rides or the games, but the sense of being part of something larger, something alive with possibility. Her parents noticed the changes too. They still asked her to help with chores, to set the table, to tend the garden, but they began to treat her words with more weight. Her father sometimes asked her opinion on small matters, and her mother began to show her family recipes, guiding her hands as she stirred, folded, and tasted. Those lessons felt like gentle steps toward adulthood. There were quiet evenings when Clara sat by her bedroom window, journal in her lap. She wrote about her hopes, her worries, the way the stars made her feel both small and infinite. The words spilled out slowly, but each one helped her make sense of the world that was beginning to open beyond her small town. Looking back now, as the radio hummed softly in the corner of the living room, Clara smiled at those years. They had been filled with uncertainty, yes, but also with discovery. The first dances, the first letters, the first sense of independence, each one a thread in the tapestry of her growing up. The music on the radio reminded her of those nights long ago when she had swayed gently to songs in the town hall, her heart full of hope. And even now, those memories did not feel distant. They lived within her, quiet and steady, carrying her into the present with a soft strength. The song drifting from the radio was slow, a tune Clara had not heard in many years. Yet as the notes filled the room, her mind slid gently back to evenings of her youth. Dances in the town hall, warm summer air carrying the sound of laughter through open windows. She could almost see herself, years younger, standing nervously in her floral dress, waiting for the music to guide her steps. She smiled softly, eyes half closed, as if the line between past and present had grown thin. The crackle of the radio became the creak of the wooden floor beneath her feet at that first dance. The hum of the tubes was like the rustle of dresses and the shuffle of shoes moving across polished boards. The living room around her seemed to blur, replaced by lanterns strung overhead and the glow of a simpler time. But then a gust of warm night air swept through the open window, carrying with it the sound of crickets, steady and grounding. Clara blinked, and she was back in her own home, her own chair, her own safe place. The music, though, still carried that golden thread of memory, weaving the years together like a quilt spread gently over her shoulders. She thought of her parents then, her father with his quiet strength, her mother with her gentle patience. Their voices, once a daily part of her life, now lived only in memory. Yet tonight, with the radio playing, she could almost hear them again. Her father chuckling softly at something in the newspaper, her mother humming as she folded laundry. The room felt fuller, warmer, as though those echoes had stepped forward to sit with her once more. The clock ticked softly on the wall. Each second passed in the present, but each tick seemed to pull forward another memory, another fragment of her younger days. She let them come unhurried, without holding on too tightly. They rose and fell like waves, gentle and familiar, lapping at the edges of her mind. The announcer's voice returned, calm and steady. And now, friends, another melody to keep you company as the night deepens. His words seemed to speak directly to her, as though he knew she was here, in this small room, finding comfort in the company of music and memory. Clara leaned back further, her body sinking into the cushions. She noticed how her breathing had slowed, how the tension in her shoulders had melted away. It was as if the night itself had taken her worries and set them aside, leaving her only with the warmth of her past and the quiet of the present. She thought of her younger brother, once sprawled across the rug with his comic books. She remembered his laughter, the way he tried to imitate the voices on the radio, making everyone in the family laugh until tears ran down their cheeks. The memory was so vivid she could almost hear him now, just beyond the corner of the room. But the room remained still, lit only by the gentle glow of the lamp. Clara exhaled slowly, a small sigh of both longing and gratitude. Memories could not bring back what was gone, but they could wrap her in comfort like a soft blanket against the night. Outside, a light breeze stirred the trees. The leaves rustled in harmony with the tune playing from the radio, and for a moment, Clara felt that the whole world was keeping her company, the earth itself joining in the song of remembrance. Her eyes grew heavier as she drifted between past and present. She no longer tried to separate them. Instead, she allowed them to overlap like two transparent pictures layered together. Her childhood laughter echoed faintly through the living room, blending with the steady hum of the radio. And in that space between memory and the present, Clara felt safe. The years that had passed no longer seemed like distances to mourn. They were bridges that carried her back whenever she needed. And tonight, as the summer night deepened, those bridges carried her gently toward rest. The cabin was quiet except for the gentle patter of rain against the wooden window. The flame of the oil lamp flickered softly, breathing shadows across the walls, almost as if the cabin itself was exhaling with her. Clara leaned back in the chair, her head resting gently against the worn wood, the teddy bear warm in her arms. Her eyes felt heavier with every passing second. The sounds around her began to melt together. The whisper of rain, the faint hum of the wind moving through the cracks, and somewhere in her memory, the faint notes of a lullaby her mother once sang. It was hard to tell if the music was in the room or only in her heart. The boundary between now and then began to dissolve. She saw herself as a little girl again, running barefoot through tall prairie grass, the summer air brushing her cheeks. But the sound of rain pulled her back, the cool drops outside reminding her she was older now, sitting in this quiet cabin. And yet, both the child and the woman seemed to exist at once. Her breathing slowed. The teddy bear in her arms seemed to take on the comforting weight of her childhood blanket. She could almost smell the old wooden floor of her parents' house, freshly cleaned, mixed with the earthy scent of the summer rain. It all folded into one tapestry, memory and present, woven together with threads of comfort. Clara tilted her head slightly, listening. The rain was no longer just rain. It was applause from distant nights at church gatherings. It was the sound of neighbors laughing across the fence. It was her father's boots knocking mud off by the door. Each drop carried a memory, falling gently into her mind like seeds in soil. Her body softened. The tension in her shoulders melted as she surrendered to the rhythm around her. She could hear, faintly, the soft hum of a fiddle, maybe from an old barn dance, though no fiddle was really there. The tune wrapped itself around the cabin, echoing in harmony with the wind, with the water, with her heartbeat. The chair beneath her creaked a little, but even that sound was familiar. It reminded her of rocking chairs on porches in the evening, neighbors talking until the fireflies rose. She could see the glow of lanterns, the clinking of cups, the voices blending into the sound of cicadas at dusk. Her eyelids fluttered, then closed. She let them stay closed this time, her breathing steady, her lips soft with the hint of a smile. In her dreams, she was walking hand in hand with her younger self. They wandered past the wheat fields, the rows of corn, past fences lined with wildflowers. Above them, the sky stretched wide, painted in shades of gold and fading blue. The present still lingered. She could feel the warmth of the oil lamp on her cheek and the faint chill of the cabin air on her arms. But she no longer fought to stay awake. She trusted the night to hold her gently. The rain deepened, steady like 1,000 soft heartbeats. The wooden cabin sighed as if settling into slumber with her. The teddy bear pressed against her chest seemed to breathe too, in perfect rhythm. And in that moment, Clara was both the child who once fell asleep to stories whispered by her mother, and the woman who now found her own way back into peace. The music of memory and the quiet of the night were not separate anymore. They were the same song, carrying her deeper and deeper. Her head tilted to the side. Her breathing became a slow, even tide. The cabin, the rain, the lamp, and her memories all faded into one gentle silence, and in that silence she was safe, held, and finally drifting into sleep. The rain outside grew softer, as though the night itself was lowering its voice. The steady rhythm tapped against the window like gentle fingertips keeping time to an old, forgotten melody. Inside the cabin, the glow of the oil lamp dimmed, its flame leaning to one side, breathing slow and steady, just as Clara did. Her body was fully at rest now. The tension had left her shoulders, her hands still curled gently around the teddy bear, holding it close to her chest, as though she were keeping safe a piece of her younger self. Her lips parted slightly, the faintest trace of a smile still lingering, as if the dream she had entered was a kind one. The wooden chair no longer creaked. It held her quietly, the way a cradle holds a sleeping child. Every sound in the cabin was hushed, softened, wrapped in the blanket of the night. Through the window, a cool breeze slipped in, carrying the scent of wet earth and pine. It mingled with the warm air of the oil lamp, filling the cabin with a fragrance both fresh and familiar, grounding her in the present while letting her drift deeper into dreams. The world beyond the walls seemed to pause. The fields soaked in the rain, the forest whispered softly to itself, and the stars above pressed their light gently through the thinning clouds. All of nature seemed to join together in a quiet chorus, singing her to sleep. Time no longer mattered. Hours, minutes, and seconds melted into the stillness, into the breath of the night, into the peaceful rise and fall of Clara's chest. Her dreams took her to places she had once walked. Sunlit paths, wide meadows, kitchens filled with laughter. But now they were softer, touched with the glow of memory, rather than the weight of time. The teddy bear in her arms seemed to shift slightly in the flickering lamplight. It was not just a toy, but a companion, a guardian of memory and of sleep. Its button eyes caught the glow for an instant, before the shadows covered it again, as though it too had closed its eyes for the night. The lamp finally steadied, its flame small but faithful, casting a circle of warmth around her. Beyond that circle, the cabin sank into shadow, and beyond the cabin, the world stretched endlessly quiet. Clara's breathing deepened, even unbroken. the kind of rhythm that only comes with surrender, with letting go. She had crossed over fully now, leaving the weight of the day and the pull of memory behind, safe within the embrace of night. And so the cabin, the rain, and the flame all kept their watch.